Whether you're black or white or Hispanic or Jew or Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, straight, gay, whatever. Even an atheist. You know what I like to say? People tell me they're atheists. I tell them this, the God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. We have a new story. We are a spiritual center for everyone. A spiritual breath of fresh air, as a tagline that I like to use. And we need to let everyone know that. We need to share this new way, this new story. So the question for today was, church, who needs it? And the answer is from this new elevated consciousness, we all do. Like I said, I have two passions, music and philosophy, and I have a strange reaction to both. When I hear something, like when I have an aha moment or something, I just I laugh. And when I hear beautiful music, I laugh because it's incredible. The energy, I'm not even sure. Did I walk up here or did I float up here? I'm not even sure, actually. Yeah, I like to start my services back at Unity, Georgetown, with some humor. Laughter is the best medicine, because it really, when you're laughing, you're in a state of joy. And when you're in a state of joy, you really can't be in anything else. Laughing kind of opens the door to your soul. And so I want to start that way this morning. I usually do it at the beginning of the service, but this will work too. So this one goes like this. There was this young couple, and they were going to get married. And they were really excited about getting married. So the day of the wedding comes, and they decide to go to the wedding together. Well, tragically, they have a situation, and they end up at the pearly gates, greeted by St. Peter, because St. Peter, that's his job, to greet at the pearly gates. And so, welcome to heaven. And then they're, wow, thank you. I'm really glad to be here and all. But we really were looking forward for this wedding thing. And so the bride says, oh, I have a question for you. Are there weddings in heaven? And St. Peter said, I've been up here all eternity. You know how that works. And I don't think anybody's ever asked that question. I will get back to you on that. And so a year passes. And then all one day, St. Peter sees a young couple, and he says, hey, come here. We're on. And the couple goes on for what? What are you talking about? For the wedding is on. They were so excited. I said, this is awesome. Then she asked one more question. Oh, by the way, one more question. On the outside chance, and it's an outside chance, but let's just say that it doesn't work out, are there divorces in heaven? St. Peter looks at her and says, are you kidding me? It took me a year to find a minister. Now you want me to find a lawyer? It's a narrow gate. Maybe we'll talk about that narrow gate idea, because it's actually true, but not in the way that you've been told. So, before coming to Unity, my Sunday morning experiences were at best questionably spiritual. It consisted of meeting at the golf course with a bunch of friends. And when it was football season, we'd be out there playing golf and essentially tailgating, if you know what I mean. So that come noontime, the game was going to start, we were ready for some football. We were. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote that we live in a spiritual universe. Given that, then, the argument can be made that, in fact, everything we do is spiritual. Certainly, I can testify that those Sunday mornings at the golf course were very heavenly. So back then, if somebody had said, hey, we're thinking about doing something different this Sunday, I would probably say, different? Like what? What are you going to do? We're thinking about going to church. I think my response would have been, church? Who needs it? As it turns out, that's how more and more people are feeling about church these days. Church attendance has been on a steady decline for the last 80 years. I'm not talking about Unity, though. Unity's not doing much better. I'm talking about all religion across the board. So the answer to who needs church apparently is that less and less people do, or so they think. And that is the subject for today. My question is, why do you suppose that is? Consider this. The young people of today are the first generation who not only don't go to church, they had parents who didn't go to church. When I was growing up, we went to church, period. But that's no longer the case for many families. It's not part of their weekly activity. And when I think back to why we went to church, or why I went to church back then, two reasons come to mind. And mind you, these are the residual thoughts in my mind from my childhood. The first was because, well, that's where God is. You want to talk to God? You go to church. Now, that's not quite true either. If you wanted to talk to God, you'd talk to the priest. He would relay the message. After all, you are not qualified to talk to God. Just who do you think you are? And of course, the second reason was we were concerned about our eternal future. Now, eternal future is a big deal when you have a belief system that tells you you only got two options for all of eternity. Now, mainstream religion really doesn't talk about God being at church that much anymore, but they do talk about where you're going to spend your eternity. That's a big part of the message. I don't know if I've seen any around here, but down in the valley where I live, there's billboards all over the place. If you were to die tonight, where will you spend eternity? Like I said, I'm a philosophy major, and there was a time there that I started writing little op-eds to the local paper down there, and they actually printed them. I was pretty impressed. Really? They're going to print my stuff? That's pretty crazy. And one of them I titled, "Is Eternity Eternal?" You see, for some strange reason, most people have the idea that eternity has a starting point. When you die, your eternal life will begin. I said, that's interesting. I ended up finishing the article by saying this. Next time someone asks you, where are you going to spend eternity? Just tell them, I don't know, but wherever it is, I'm already there. Because that's what eternity means. Look it up. And every now and then I channel Socrates' little edgy humor. I apologize for that, so it just happens. Early on when I was in Unity, I came across something by a lady called Nona Brooks. And she was one of the leaders of a Church of Divine Science. I think they were out of Colorado somewhere. And an early New Thought group. And she wrote this: "We are living in eternity now." And I saw that and I thought, wow, there you go, Nona. I never really thought about it that way. But of course we are. Point taken. See, now we have this new understanding of what living in eternity now means from a scientific point of view. It is called non-locality. Everything is everywhere all the time. Try to wrap your head around that idea, that everything is everywhere all the time. And here's the point of all this. The old way of seeing life no longer works for more and more people. This is a huge reason for this grand exodus from the church. Lately, I've been thinking about how do we bring in new and younger people into Unity? How do we do this? Because everywhere I go in Unity churches, I love visiting Unity churches. If we're traveling, whatever, I always go because I want to see what's going on. And by and large, everywhere I go, most people are in the winter season of their life, let's call it. It's an uphill battle, and it's not getting any better. But one thing seems clear. The way to do this is that the same old approach to doing things is just not going to work. In Texas, we have a saying. Keep on doing what you've always done, and you're going to keep on getting what you always got. So do you want to keep this 80-year trend going? Let's just keep on doing what we've always done. Why not? Or we could take a whole new approach to this, one that appeals to people who are just not interested in church. Let's face it. And about that, I heard one professor say, I'm not talking about rearranging the furniture here. I'm talking about tearing down the structure and rebuilding it. No problem, right? Because we're the masters of change, aren't we? Change your mind, change your world, we say. Isn't that what we say? Maybe we should practice it now and then. Plus, we have denials and affirmations. We got spiritual tools, lots of them, 14 of them. So we can begin by denying and saying what we are not, and then work on, well, what are we? We are a new way of seeing things. Unity has a wonderful, positive, empowering message, an approach to spirituality that is love-centered, all-inclusive, a message that is truly universal in all ways. It is a message of oneness in contrast to that message of separation that I talked about before. It is a message of being in the present moment. We're not future-based. You ever notice that? That all religion is about the future. Nothing about today, the present. And it's a wonderful message. And it's a message we need to spread. But you got to get people in the door before you can do this. That's why I said last time, I really think Unity has a marketing problem. Because you go to the outlet malls or whatever, and you ask 100 people, and if you're lucky, you might get one, maybe two, who even know what Unity is. We got a marketing problem. So let's shift gears here. Let's talk about this. I have a couple of ideas about the way things are. And it comes down to this. It's very basic. We have outgrown religion as we know it. We have outgrown the old story. We have outgrown the old story. And it's a natural process because as children, whether in human form or in spiritual awareness, because, yeah, we can be baby divinities, as Butterworth says. When we were at that point, things look different for us. Fillmore wrote that we're always living our consciousness. And of course we are. And Scripture reminds us of this. When I was a child, I thought as a child. So let me draw on a practical example that perhaps will clear this up for you. As human children, we believed in the story of Santa. We were perfectly fine with the story for a long time, however that period of time is, a year, 2, 3, I don't remember. And at some point or another, we started asking questions. It might have gone something like this. Now, hold on here a minute. I got to thinking. Are you trying to tell me this one guy, Santa, goes, delivers toys to every house on the entire planet in one evening? How is this even possible? Likewise, in our young spiritual journey, you might have started asking questions like this one. How is it possible that God revealed itself to one group of people, and it so happens this one group of people is the one who wrote the story? Well, that's kind of convenient. I've asked many questions. Let me give you another one. How does a loving God send people to eternal damnation based on this one short, temporary human lifetime? How is that possible? In summary, how does a one-size-fits-all religion work given the infinite circumstances of human life? Or perhaps you've taken a different approach, like I have, and actually studied, like the great courses, where all the religion comes from and all these other things. That will certainly change your mind about things. The point is, tradition has no answers for people who really ask questions. And thus, the grand exodus. I see it all the time. Work with me on this analogy between Santa and our spiritual journey here. What happened in the Santa story and what is happening in church attendance is the same thing. We no longer believe the story because our consciousness has outgrown the story. It has risen above the story. The problem with that is that we have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. What do I mean by that? We went from no longer believing the story to believing that there's nothing relevant about the story. We discarded the whole concept altogether. This has created a giant void in humans' lives because we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We need spirit and spirituality in our lives. Let me put this all together for you. Let's call this part 2, the transformation. There's something very interesting about these two stories, and the parallel between them continues. But now from a new and higher consciousness. Those of you who may be familiar with spiral dynamics, we're evolving and evolving, and we keep seeing the situations, but every time we see the situation again, we see it from a higher elevation, and it looks different. Look at what happens. The story of Santa started about a man doing something that seemed impossible, delivering toys to all the children in the world on one evening. If taken literally, it is impossible, and it's not true. However, if taken metaphorically or metaphysically, as we say, it's not only possible, it's absolutely true. We saw the literal impossibility of the story, and we abandoned the story because we deemed it nonsense. But now, as adults, we have a new view of the story. We see it all differently. Sure, we continue to perpetuate with the children the story of Santa because that's their child mind mentality, and that's fine. But as adults, we know better. Now it's no longer about a man literally giving gifts to every child on the planet. Now it's about an idea. And ideas are transcendent. They are eternal. Now that the story makes sense again because it is idea-based. It is about a concept, a principle, and that idea is the spirit of giving. Santa then becomes a metaphor for the spirit of giving from our elevated consciousness. And can the spirit of giving give to everyone on the planet in one evening? It absolutely can. So the story was always true, but it was never literal. It was never about a man. It was about an idea, the spirit of giving. Now, what do you suppose is the case with the spiritual story we've been told? Exactly the same thing. There was a time as spiritual children when our consciousness allowed us to believe the old story. As we began to unfold and to question it, then it no longer made sense for us. So we left the story. This is what's happened to so many people. They've outgrown the story, but they have not found a new story to replace it with. We in Unity have a new story. Most people aren't even aware that there is another way of looking at things. See, from this higher elevation, the story makes sense again. It's a new story, a transformative way to see things. And it changes the story from literal to allegorical or metaphysical once again. So the story and message of Jesus was never meant as a literal story. It was always a conceptual story. And from that perspective, it does make sense and has always been true. Yes, God did take the form of a man, but it was never about a man. It was always about an idea. And that idea is a divinity within us all. That's the idea. The old story mistook the messenger for the message. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "The highest revelation is that God is in every man." That's old language. He meant every mankind. That message is our niche in unity, and the message that we need to drive home for those who don't know it. Because no one else is telling people, you are divine. You already are that which you seek in the eternal now. No one's telling them that except us. But they're not here to hear it. That's what we need to do. I come from a Catholic background. And I like to say, you need to reconcile my Christian upbringing on my insistence on universality. It has got to be about everybody. Period. Whether you're black or white or Hispanic or Jew or Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, straight, gay, whatever, even an atheist. You know what I like to say to people who tell me they're atheists? I tell them this, you know, the God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. Really don't. We have a new story. We are a spiritual center for everyone, a spiritual breath of fresh air, as a tagline that I like to use. And we need to let everyone know that. We need to share this new way, this new story. So the question for today was, church, who needs it? And the answer is from this new elevated consciousness, we all do. Let's take a few moments now to contemplate today's message. I'm going to invite you to just comfortable in your chair. Feet firmly planted on the floor. Eyes closed if you are comfortable with that. Take a few deep centering breaths. And turn your focus entirely to the eternal here and now. And as we center ourselves, we begin to feel the calming presence of Spirit filling our hearts and our minds. And as we do, our bodies begin to relax because where mind goes, body follows. I'm going to challenge you today to do something really bold. I'm going to ask you to accept the divinity that you are. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within. God is within. Some people might find this difficult, given our spiritual past of feeling inferior, unworthy. Some are even critical of the message. So it's a bold message. To them, I say, I'm not saying I am all of God, but I am saying that God is all of me. Surrender to that presence. It is a presence inside of you waiting to come forth. Let it do so. From this higher place of awareness, we come to the realization that every moment of every day is a brand new opportunity to begin this transformative process of moving into a higher state of being. As powerful co-creators of the universe, we participate in this creative process. God is indeed expressing itself through each of us.
Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I circulate, and I am grateful.